Yeah, I'm good.
All right, everyone, welcome. If you're tuning in on YouTube, thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to be doing a full Iconic Master set review, starting with the commons in white. We've got Ryan Saxe from Star City Games on the line. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Hey, yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. All right, so we'll just start alphabetically here. We got the spoiler up from MTG Goldfish, and we're just going to start off with Einok Bondkin. It's a 1 and a white for a 2/1 Hound Soldier. This is from Khan's block. It has Outlast, so there's a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies in the format. This can tap to put a counter on itself only on your turn as a sorcery, and each creature you control with a counter on it has first strike.
Yeah. Of note, there are counter archetypes dedicated to it, right? I think green, white, and green, black.
Yes.
Are those archetypes? I mean, two drops. I mean, we know me. I like two drops. So and I mean, a two drop that can become what a 3/2 first strike,
Yeah.
and even better than that is it keeps growing tends to be pretty good. And if it gives other creatures first strike, I mean that's phenomenal.
I also think of note, like as just going through these cards myself on the spoilers. Like I've not played with these cards yet, but white seems to have like sort of two distinct routes. Like there seems to be a more aggressive route with maybe some prowess creatures, and a more controlling route with a lot of life gain synergies. And it's
Yeah,
nice to have a creature that scales with the game, like Einok Bondkin, in both of those decks. Like it's going to be good in an aggro deck, and it's going to be good in a late game deck.
absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is one of those white cards that I think its flexibility is really gonna speak well to it. One of the things that I've been thinking about this format in general is the way that the colors are situated.
Mm-hmm.
Some colors can be both aggressive and mid range, and some colors can't. For example, green and black, neither of them can really be aggressive. And so the like white, blue, and red cards that are more flexible in their orientation may be higher picks.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, that might speak to how we're sort of navigating Ixalan in the first few picks. Like
It's true.
not trying to pick something that goes into an archetype so hard in the first few picks of your draft.
Yeah, and in master sets in general, usually finding your lane is also really important
Mm-hmm.
because everything is so linearized
Yeah.
that just similarly to Ixalan, except all of the cards are phenomenal,
Right.
is a way to think about it. So you don't get punished as much, but you can get rewarded unbelievably well.
Yeah, I agree. I would give this a C plus.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I'll have it. Just solid common.
Yeah, cool. You want to take us through this next one?
Sure. So Angel of Mercy is 4 and a white for a 3/3 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. Um, these cards are like good. I mean, we had this exact card pretty much in Hour of Devastation, which I think was underrated in Hour.
Mm-hmm.
I like the card quite a bit, but given the way that Master sets turned out to work, I'm not excited about this one.
Yeah, it'd be
Um,
interesting to see. And it feels like there is a life gain deck, but that deck is sort of centered around this enchantment that cares about you gaining 4 life.
4, yeah,
So this angel doesn't quite get you there, right?
yeah. I mean, I think it's a card that you'll probably play, but I think a lot of decks won't. It seems like something you won't really need. Um, it also will depend entirely on the texture of the format, so it may become very important if there are aggressive decks running around, as
Mm-hmm.
well as there are a bunch of mana rocks at common. So maybe it's more of a 4 drop, in which case then it gets a little bit better. I would have this at a C minus though.
Yeah,
Maybe a D plus, depends on how the format comes out.
yeah. I'm not willing to start it at at a D plus just yet. I think it's still probably going to be happily in your deck, at least as like the 20th card or whatever. So I think C minus sounds good. Next up, we've got Benevolent Ancestor. It's 2 and a white for an 0/4 spirit with Defender, and it has tap to prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn. So of
God, these
note,
cards.
there's
Mhm.
like a kind of Defender deck in the format. We'll get to the hallmark card for that deck is going to be Vent Sentinel that we'll get to later. But so Defender is a relevant creature type, and Doorkeeper as well in blue. So Defender's a relevant creature type with some creatures in the format. But this kind of effect always looks like kind of innocuous, and it is always kind of impossible to play around.
It's so
Yeah.
annoying. These kinds of effects, just like you look at them and you look at combat and you just want to like not do the math anymore.
Yeah. The fact that this is a common and you can get multiples of them and they stack up and just like the more you have, the more obnoxious combat math becomes. I think this card's very good, and I think I give it a C+.
I might even be inclined to give it a B minus, depending on how the format works. It makes combat so annoying and so difficult, and those kinds of things. Like, I know this is a weird way to grade a card, but this is the kind of card that like just gets your opponent to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some value in that. I would start it at C plus, but I would not be surprised if, depending on the way that the texture of white decks work, it ends up being even better than that, especially because of how good they become in multiples.
Thanks, Enchanted Evening. Can you adjust that command, please? That is a disaster. I updated my stream title, but not the command. All right, what's the next card here?
All right, so we have Blinding Mage, which is 1 and a white for a human wizard, 1/2, and it has the ability white, tap it to tap target creature. Well, tappers are good. That's pretty consistent. I mean, sometimes if it's too expensive to use the ability, it's too expensive to use the ability, but this one being only a mana, I would guess it's going to be fairly good.
I think this is going to be worse than tappers normally are. There's a lot of utility creatures in the format. And, ooh, Murph with the 18 viewer host. Thank you very much. There's a lot of utility creatures in the format, and a lot of creatures, like, there is a sort of defender synergy deck, and I don't know how often that's going to come up, but this is just terrible against that. But this is, I think, this is the removal white gets, basically. Like, we'll see guard duty in a little bit, and I guess Iona's Judgment, but this is sort of like, white kind of needs this removal, but I don't think it's going to be that good.
Well, so one of the things about Masters formats in general is that removal tends to be worse because creatures tend to be more than one card.
Yeah.
So, like, I wrote, I think I had a write-up in Modern Masters 3 about how just, like, stop taking removal because every single creature is almost a 2-for-1, and if you're trying to go 1-for-1, you're just not going to beat that. And so having a card that can work towards combat and winning the game that also can double back as removal as necessary may have more value than it looks. I don't expect the card. I don't want to first pick the card, and I don't expect the card to be great.
Yeah.
But I think it may have an important role to play.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd give this just a solid C.
I think I'm gonna start with C plus, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down.
Sweet. Next up, we've got Disenchant, 1 and a white for an instant, destroy target artifact or enchantment. You may have dived a bit deeper into this spoiler than I have. What do you think about a Disenchant? How powerful is that going to be in this format?
I don't think it's a format where you're going to main deck Disenchant. Of note, there have been formats where you would. So if the value of cards swaps around to the point where where everybody always has multiple targets, then maybe we'll get there. But in general, like, it seems like these are cards to keep certain things in check, and I would leave it in the sideboard. But it is a very good sideboard card, and I would look to have access to one of them.
Great. What's going on next?
So Doom Traveler is 1 mana, just a white, for a 1/1, and when it dies, you get a 1/1 flying spirit token. Is there a sacrifice deck in this format? I don't think there is, right?
I don't think so.
I don't remember seeing that many sack outlets.
So then why is this here?
So these kinds of cards are often interesting and really depend on the way that your deck is going to end up looking. If you go back to EMA, Eternal Masters, this card would have been, if it was there, it would have been better than it looked, mainly because there was an abundance of 1 toughness creature. It's actually why two of the best uncommons in the set were Flame Jab and the Red Honden. And they were like slam dunk first picks because they actually killed a bunch of relevant threats. This format, I haven't done like a toughness analytic or anything, but this looks like it's here more because aggro decks need to be linearized, and so 1-drops are things that you're probably looking to put in your aggro decks. So maybe that's going to end up being important. I don't have this as a card that I would want to prioritize, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I'm at like C minus D plus.
I think I'd start even with D plus.
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me.
If the format is very aggressively oriented, then this card will be better because it'll make more of your decks. But
yeah. Next up, we got Dragon Bell Monk, 2 and a white for a 2/2 human monk with vigilance, and it has prowess. So prowess is it's evergreen now, but also pretty prevalent in this format. This is okay as far as prowess creatures goes. It's not one of the more pushed ones, if I remember correctly from, what was it? I think this was Dragons of Tarkir, or whatever the middle set was, Fate Reforged. Yeah, this card is fine. I think probably like C minus, just like filler common.
I agree. I don't think I'm going to be looking to put this in my deck, because if you want to think about it this way, if there is a deck that is going to try and abuse prowess, it can't play that many creatures, which means the worst prowess creatures aren't going to make your deck even in a prowess deck.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't want to play too many. So I think this is a C minus, maybe even a D plus. It's going to depend on how the white prowess decks are looking.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What's next?
All right, we have. Oh, I love this card. we have Emerge Unscathed, which is just a white for an instant, and target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice with Rebound. And Rebound is a mechanic that essentially, if you cast a spell from your hand on your next upkeep, you get to cast it again. So it is card advantage as a mechanic, which it's always great and limited. And I really protection is so good. There's a reason that it doesn't exist anymore. There's a reason that we don't get protection cards. And one is because it's really complicated with a bunch of weird rules. I think one important thing to note is you can actually target your opponent's creatures. So this
No, you can't.
Right? It's target creature you control. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. I don't know if I... Okay. That's unfortunate because I like... you can make auras fall off. But, so...
The card right below it, Pentarch Ward, that we'll get to, that you can do that with.
Okay. I remember noting that I could give something protection on my opponents. It was the wrong card, I guess. Yeah. But I think this card is great.
Yeah. Old Metal Ship in chat here is pointing out exactly sort of how this card is going to work out. Like, it's probably going to 1-for-1, like, trade with a removal spell or a creature the first time it's cast, and then when you rebound it, you're basically just, like, making a creature unblockable or difficult to block effectively the following turn. That's sort of, like, not really best case scenario, but, like, usual case scenario for this card, and that makes a pretty powerful effect for one mana.
Also can kill a creature in combat if your opponent's trying to trade as well.
Right.
So, like, it's just so flexible for 1 mana that that it seems great. Also, if you get to do combat math ahead of time, you can just go unblockable.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which is big game, especially if you're talking about prowess triggers. And this card just does so many little things.
Ooh, that's nice. Prowess too.
Yeah, this card does so many things that I'm going to be excited to take it and play it, but I also like this card a lot. So.
Now, are you like? Do you think you'll be able to run multiples of these in a deck? Like, how many of these can you put in a deck?
I think I'd be happy to run 2, and then the rest is going to depend on how the format works out, right? Because if especially at the beginning, my prediction and sort of how Masters formats work is that people take removal highly to start because the removal is reminiscent of great removal spells that we had. But because creatures do so many things, removal is usually worse than you would expect it to be. But if people are trying to play a bunch of removal spells, this card gets even better. So I would start. I don't know if I'm going to take this card highly because there's a limit to the number of effects like this that you can have, but I have it as. I think I'd have it as close to a B minus.
Wow! Wow!
Just does so many things.
I am gonna go a little lower than that. I'm gonna start that at a C, but I could definitely see this could be like as obnoxious as Skullduggery is. Like this could just be so easily 2-for-1able. So B plus might just be right.
Hey Decon, I'm in my apartment in New York City.
Yeah. All right. Next up we got Guard Duty. That's 1 white mana for an aura. Enchanted creature. Enchanted creature has a defender.
Yeah.
This is not great.
No, I don't really. Is there like defender synergy so you can enchant your non-defender creature in your defender deck?
That's what I'm most excited about doing. Is like building my Vent Sentinel Doorkeeper deck and then casting Guard Duty on my non-defender creatures. I'm much more excited about that than putting it on my opponent's stuff.
So there's like a 5-color defender deck?
I don't know if 5 color is really supported in this format. Like, there's not a ton of multicolor fixing, which makes me sad because those are usually some of the more fun things to do in the Masters sets.
Sure. I mean, when we get to the lands, the bounce lands.
The bounce lands.
Oh my god, they're so
huge.
good.
Bounce lands were in Modern Masters 3, right? I think.
Were they?
Were they not? Or were those
might have been.
I think they were.
I think they were.
Anyway, I would start Guard Duty off at like D+.
I think I'm going to have it as just a D.
This is not where I want to be at in terms of removal spells.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, what's next?
MM2. I guess it was MM2 that had the bounce lance. So we have Gilded Strike, which is 1 white instant. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike and draw a card. I mean, so it's kind of like an impeccable timing plus draw card, right? But you need to be able to you have to be able to block or have you have to be able to block to use it on like the other case when you could use impeccable timing if they were attacking and you don't block. But you can at least cycle it. So this card seems pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Again, especially with like prowess cards, right? Like there's Kiln Fiend and things like that in the set. And Kiln Fiend is a card that people will double block. Or actually, that's probably not
people
true.
Need to
That's
double
not
block
true.
Kiln Fiend. But like, think about
true.
we'll get to. There's Jesse and Thief now at common and blue. Like,
right.
There's just a lot. The prowess really makes these cantrip combat tricks. Like there's one in green as well. There's a handful of cantrip spells in blue. They're all going to be great at triggering prowess. And so it's not going to be hard to craft a state where this gets you a 2-for-1, and then maybe even your prowess trigger is getting you, a few more points of damage or trading up with a creature. This card is, I think, going to do a lot of work in this format.
Yeah.
It's going to be really a bummer when you see it cast on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah, it's also fine on defense too. So, right, because like even if you get blown out, you drew the card.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess not if they remove your creature, but if they have something. But
right. Where are you at on this grade wise?
I'd probably give it a C.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm excited to play it. It doesn't do that many things, but it's very good. It's solid.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we have a card that's going to be super obnoxious to play against. Infantry Veteran is 1 white mana for a 1/1. Has tap, target attacking creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So if you think about Duskborn Sky Marcher in a Vampires deck and how annoying that is, and that only can target vampires and costs a mana, and this can target any of your creatures, is a common, and doesn't cost any mana to activate.
Oh yeah, this card's great.
This is going to be like the bread and butter of the white aggro deck, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Also, being a 1-drop is a huge tempo play too.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any human synergies in the set? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this card's great. I think these cards always are better than they look. There's a reason we do not get it at common anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'd be happy to take this card. It's going to be great in any aggro deck, and they stack quite well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would give this a C+.
I would also give it a C+.
Sweet. What's this clunky removal spell?
This is Iona's Judgment, 4 white, for a sorcery that exiles a creature or enchantment. I just don't like the card. I mean, like, sure, it's flexible. It can get rid of anything. It can get rid of enchantments, and there are enchantments in the set. So it looks like one of those things that you play one of, and it's a good catch-all. But I don't know, 5 mana is just so much.
Yeah,
especially at sorcery speed.
And especially in a master set, where we're going to have better removal in a master set.
I agree.
Than this.
Yeah, I think this is just a D.
So even though you're probably happy, like you probably want 1 in a white deck if you don't have like a Doomblade or something, right?
I don't know. I mean, like this seems like okay, in a white aggressive deck, it seems worse than most combat tricks would be. And in a white controlling deck, I think that if you... My opinion of this card as a D is more so if you have to play this card, I don't think I'd be happy with my deck. Mm-hmm. So I can't see myself drafting a more white controlling deck in which, like, getting to draft that deck where I have to play this card, I don't think I would like it.
I wonder if this is even just going to see more play as like a splashed card in other color decks than it's going to see play in a white deck.
I could see that. I
Yeah.
could see that. Like sort of like you end up drafting some deck, and you're able to splash it, and everything's great, but you're a little light on removal.
Yeah,
I could see
like
that.
a deck that can afford to spend 5 mana on a removal spell, but I don't think a base white deck is gonna want to invest in this card.
That's an interesting way to think about it. Okay, maybe that brings me up to a D plus, but I
Yeah.
still.
No, I think it's not good. I'm gonna go C minus. It's hard for me to give catch-all removal even at 5 mana sorcery speed lower than a something in the C range, but I think you might just be right.
For sure.
Next up is Pentarch Ward, 2 and a white for an aura. A lot of text on this card. Enchant creature, when it comes into play, you choose a color. When it comes into play, you draw a card, and the enchanted creature has protection from the chosen color. The effect doesn't remove Pentarch Ward.
Oh, wow.
Card is super flexible.
Yeah.
Like, give your creature protection from your opponent's stuff. Like, if there's any aura-based removal that people can put on your own stuff, you can get that off. If there's aura-based enhancements on your opponent's side of the battlefield, you can put this on their creature to knock it off. Like, just think it's...
You just need to draw a card too. Like
Yeah.
you just choose a color that's not in your deck, put it on your opponent's creature to cycle.
Right.
You know, you like it. This strikes me as this is a card that I'm gonna have to play with a lot before I really figure out where it lands. But it has a really, really high ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, as we talked about before, protection is a very powerful mechanic, and you know, it can. You know, it can really warp a game, right? Your creature can block all of your opponent's creatures. Your creature becomes unblockable. They can't kill it. Like if you put 2 of these on a creature, you built your own True Name Nemesis.
Yeah.
And it draws a card too, so you don't even go down. Now 3 mana for a enchantment that doesn't enhance the stats is a little worrisome, but it can still just block everything,
Right.
Or at least almost everything.
Yeah. I don't think you can afford to run a lot of these,
No.
but certainly is a one of and maybe 2 of.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to play the first copy always.
Yeah. So that probably lands me at just a solid C for the card.
I think a C is a good place to start, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being way better than that.
Yeah. So can you believe this next card is at common?
I mean, yeah, no. Seeker of the Way it was an uncommon when we first saw it, and it was still great. It's 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 2/2 with prowess, but whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gains lifelink until the end of the turn. So that, I mean, like, it can play out as a 2 mana 3/3 lifelink, which is, I mean, absolutely unreal. I think I have this as the best white common.
Yeah, I do. I do too.
And I mean, I think it's a B. I think
it's a B.
that's just where you put it. It can warp a game, and it's very good.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Right.
Next up, we've got Stalwart Aven, 2 and a white for a 1/3 bird soldier with flying, and it has Renown 1. So Renown says when this creature deals combat damage to a player, if the creature isn't renowned, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it becomes renowned. So, like, pretty decent. Like, 3 mana 1/3 flyer is not super exciting, but it's not difficult to imagine this hitting your opponent as it's an evasive threat, and then get a 3 mana 2/4 flyer is pretty good.
How good is a 4 mana 2/4 flyer?
Good.
That's an interesting way to think about it. A 4 mana 2/4 flyer is pretty good.
Yeah.
I think this card's solid. It was solid last time we saw it in Origins. It's a master set, so it's probably going to be a little bit worse.
But there's counter synergies, remember. There's +1 counter synergies, so
that's true.
The renowned stuff is, I think, not irrelevant.
Yeah, for sure.
Old Metal Ship, yeah, that is correct. That's a good point for Pentarch Ward being a thing that can trigger prowess and replace itself is also, I think, a good thumbs up for that card. I would come down on a C for Stalwart Aven.
Yep, I would give it just a C. I think in most normal limited sets it would be a C+, but not in the master set.
Yeah.
All right. So now we have a Student of Ojutai, which is 3 and a white for a 2/4 human monk. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you gain 2 life. All right. I tend not to like these types of cards.
Yeah.
4 mana for a 2/4 is not very good without anything else. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, gaining 2 life is relevant text. And there is, like, life gain synergies.
Yeah.
I think that like this is sort of like I wouldn't. Most of the prowess decks are going to want to be aggressive, uh, so maybe this is sort of like a way of melding two archetypes. Except I don't think Student of Ojtai is going to be very good in most of the prowess decks.
Yeah, I really want to like this card, and I think it would be so much better if it was like a 1/5. But the problem with this as a 4-mana 2/4 is even when you play it on turn 4, if you're getting beaten down, you're not really looking to block with this the turn you play it because you want to untap with it to get to like, okay, now I can cast removal spell or a combat trick to gain some life. So then, because if you block their 2/2 or 3/3 with this, you're almost certainly going to get dead by some removal spell, some combat trick on their side of the battlefield. So, yeah, I think this is probably just a D.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would also give it a D. I can see a world where it's a D, like a C minus, but that would require some additional work.
I mean, I hope it's a C minus. I hope there's a home for it in the format, but it just seems like it's a little too slow on like all fronts to be good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Next up is Survival Cachet, 2 and a white. For sorcery, you gain 2 life. Then if you have more life than an opponent, draw a card, and it has Rebound.
Yeah.
Now, this card is like probably not very good because
it's really good when you have. I mean, if you have more life than your opponent, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean,
this card is just too narrow, right?
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, like if you have any of the life gain synergies, like whenever you gain life, something happens. Maybe it makes your deck, but I think outside of that, you want like life gain cards are meant to like. How much better is this card? Think about it this way than whatever Ritual of Rejuvenation in Ixalan.
Worse, much worse.
Like if it's right, and you really don't want to put that card in your deck. So I'm going to start this as like a D minus.
Yeah.
Maybe a D build around. Is the way to think about
maybe.
it.
I think D minus sounds good to me. What's this last one here?
All right, we have Sustainer of the Realm, which is 2 white for a 2/3 flyer. Whenever it blocks, it gets +0/+2. So it blocks as a 2/5 in the air, which is pretty good, and it attacks as a 2/3. This card seems fine, but not great. I mean, one of the things that we talked about, right, is when we were talking about the Aven, is how good is a 4-mana 2/4 flyer, and it's pretty good, and this behaves similarly.
Yeah.
Because the toughness is more relevant for blocking, but I mean, the double white means you're not always going to cast it on turn 4. I think this card is fine, but nothing to write home about.
Wait.
Yeah.
What is it coming up on? We're literally doing an Iconic Master set review right now.
Yeah.
It's literally happening right now.
Yeah,
this card seems really solid to me.
Yeah, I mean it's solid. I guess it's kind of like the kind of cards that I don't like too much, which are it's much better when it's blocking than attacking. Like a 4-mana 2/3 flyer, right? Like it's okay, and also stats are like how many. It's going to depend on how many flyers, right? Like how often does your opponent have a 3/3 flyer in this format? Right. And so, because like a 4-mana 2/5 flyer that can't attack, for example, is not good, right? So how good is it when attacking? It's fine. Like I don't think I'm excited to pick this card. I will play it though. I think it's just a solid C.
Yeah, I agree. Solid C sounds good to me. How do you feel about going Lords of Limited style and ranking the top 3 commons?
Ooh, we could.
All right, let's give it a shot. So I think Seeker of the Way on 1 for sure.
Yep.
And then I don't know. Is Blinding Mage 2? Is Benevolent Ancestor 2?
I think it's depending. It's going to depend on like the speed of the format, but Infantry Veteran could easily be number 2.
Yeah, for sure.
That's probably where I'm going to have it.
That seems good to me.
The third is just very deck dependent. Like if you have the counters, like maybe Anak Bonkind, your prowess, maybe it's the Emerge Unscathed. It's ranking commons, especially in sets like master sets that end up being so synergistic. Once you get after like the first one or the second one, it's really hard to rank because it's going to end up on very deck dependent. But I think we can both agree that Seeker of the Way is the one of these that I'm very happy to first pick.
That's fair. Yeah, maybe just talking about maybe what the best or hallmark one is. Seeker of the Way seems very good to me. All right, we'll move on to the uncommons here.
All right. So white uncommons I have to refilter.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So first up we have Obzan Battle Priest, 3 and a white for a 3/2 human
Bone.
cleric. Outlast 1, that's the sorcery speed, put a counter on it, and each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has lifelink.
I talked to you about how much I hate the mechanic lifelink. It's like the most popular mechanic, but I despise it.
That doesn't surprise me, Captain Aggro over here.
I mean, this
Yeah.
card's really, really good.
Yeah, this card is really good. This is, I mean, it's a payoff for having +1/+1 counters on your creatures, which I think counters, to answer your question, real kernel, I think counters is going to be a real deck and a real synergy with payoffs, and this is one of them. And I would pick this card highly, and it's probably just a B.
Yep. I also have it as a B.
You're so mad about it.
I don't like when I saw the Ixalan spoiler and saw how many cards had lifelink at common, I was very upset.
Yeah.
So I mean, at least this is an uncommon. The card, and I mean, life gain is a mechanic. Of note, when this becomes lifelink, it triggers all of the whenever you gain 4 life, which is really relevant. So
Yeah.
it has multiple homes, and it's
for
probably
sure.
just good in every white deck. So yeah, I'm on B with this card.
The thing to point out is, like, when it comes into play, it's embarrassing. A 4-mana 3/2 is not good. But if you get to untap with this card and turn it into, and you have the time to make it a 4/3, or you have other things with counters on the battlefield, it's really good. So you may have to invest a little build around in the draft to it, but it definitely is worth investing that time.
Yep, for sure. All right, so now we have Obzon Falconer, which is 2 and a white for a 2/3 with Outlast for a white. And each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying. This card's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's incredibly strong.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, if you're in the counters deck, it gives all your creatures flying, which is almost unbeatable. And I mean, it itself, sure, you can only Outlast as a sorcery, so don't forget that. A lot of people make mistakes in the beginning of cons with that. So, I mean, but it's a 3/4 flyer for 3 in one way to look at it. Sure, you can't attack with it the next turn if you want to do that, but still. This card, I would give it a B+.
Yeah, I would too. I think that's great. Yeah, the card is really strong. Definitely a great first pick. So we're going to start to see some of the lifelink payoffs here. A Johnny's Pridemate, 1 and a white for a 2/2. Whenever you gain life, you may put a +1/+1 counter on a Johnny's Pridemate.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, this is just, like, a solid bear with, like, some upside if you can build around it or turn it on. But I don't think it's like, I'm not opening this and going, oh, sweet, I'm slamming this, and then I'm drafting a bunch of life gain cards.
Yeah. This strikes me as the kind of card that I thought would be common in a Masters set.
Yeah.
So it being at uncommon may mean some things from a from a design/development perspective when they were making the set, which is something that's good to note when you're looking at sets like this. Rarity shifts can give information or not rarity shifting, right? So this may mean that it was too good to get multiple of these in the counters deck. In the life gain deck. I think the card's solid, but I'm not gonna slam it, as you said. I'd give it like a C. It's probably just a C, and then if you're in the life gain deck, maybe it's a B.
Yeah, I think there's probably enough like incidental life gain floating around that, like, in white at least, that C+ is where I'm gonna land on this.
Sure.
But yeah, C+ sounds good to me. What's next?
All right, we have Build Around Enchantment, Angelic Chord, which is 3 and a white for an enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, it's each end step, not just yours. If you gain 4 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel with flying. This card is just a build around card, right?
Yep.
You cannot put it in any deck that is not extremely dedicated to being able to gain 4 life, which is a lot of life.
A lot.
So I would not be picking this up aggressively or anything, but of note, it will be flying around the table if nobody else is doing it. So this is big payoff if you end up in the deck that can consistently gain 4 life in a turn.
And the thing that's nice about a do-nothing enchantment like this is if your deck is built correctly and you are able to gain a lot of life, you've bought yourself some time to be able to take a turn off to put your engine card onto the battlefield. So I think this has real potential. I hope this is unsurprisingly a card I'm very excited about, and I want to gain a lot of life and make a lot of angels, and I hope this is the real deal, and I hope it's worth building around. So I hope it's a build around B+.
It definitely could be, but you can't give it a grade without the build around because otherwise it's just not playable.
No, for sure. It's a stone cold F in a deck that is not dedicated towards it.
Yep.
Next up, we have
All right.
Burrington Forge Tender. 1 white mana for a 1/1 Kithkin Wizard with protection from red, and you can sacrifice it to prevent all damage a red source of your choice would deal this turn. Why is this card in this set?
Because so in master sets there are often reprints of cards that people need for Modern Legacy, and it's a staple sideboard card. So we'll see some cards like I think like especially when we go to the rares, we'll see cards that really don't have a place in limited.
Right.
Some of them are going to be at uncommon, and some even at common. So I mean, this is a 1-mana 1/1. If your deck wants a 1-mana 1/1 with some upside, sure, and it is a good sideboard card against red decks.
Yeah,
sort of. Like it's fine. It's still not great. It just means your 1/1 can block well, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's a D.
Yeah, I'm gonna go D-. But yeah, I think definitely want to keep it in mind as sideboard fodder for sure.
All right, now we have a Great Teacher's Decree, which is 3 and a white for a sorcery. Creatures you control get +2/+1, and it has rebound. So if you have a token deck, if you cast this and untap, you pretty much win.
Right? Is there a token deck in white though?
Yeah, that's the question.
We haven't seen one, right?
We don't see many things that make tokens, and if I remember the archetypes, there's not a token-based archetype. Of note, if you're in a prowess deck, it gives your creatures +3/+2. If you have enough creatures. So
that's interesting.
And +3/+2, that +2 toughness boost is almost just game over. If you have like 3 creatures with prowess and you cast this card.
This was in Favorite Forge, right?
Yeah, I don't remember. I actually didn't draft that set very much, so I don't remember how good it was there. It's really hard to rate cards like this, though.
This card was pretty strong. Just the fact that it had rebound and like, you don't need, unlike a lot of these sort of sorcery speed anthem effects, you don't need a lot. Need a lot of creatures to make this good.
But of note, these effects get so much worse when your opponent knows they're coming.
Yes.
So the rebound does not have as much oomph as the initial one does.
For sure.
And 4 mana. So I think this card's going to be good. It's just hard to tell how wide you need to go to make it good. And I think I'd start with the card on like a.
I think it's also kind of deck dependent. That's
why it's hard to rate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would take it highly in a draft. This doesn't strike me as a kind of card that I want to build my deck around, but if I have like an aggressive white deck, I will probably play one copy.
It seems like a card like if you're in this deck sort of like halfway through pack 2 or whatever, you're hoping it's opened at the table so you can get it.
Yep.
I think like C- seems about right.
C- is a good place to put it. DC Sports, I don't think Trumpet Blast is just better because I think the rebound and the 1 toughness does have value.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that like it can trigger prowess twice, like I think these are all like little incidental things that are pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
Next up we got Sarah Angel, 3 white, 4/4 Angel. Doesn't get much more iconic than this. Flying Vigilance.
Yep.
We saw in Ixalan that Air Elemental went down a little bit. Like we were sort of like, all right, well this is always a solid card. 5 mana 4/4 flying is still good. It's a little less good than we might think.
But still quite good.
Still quite good. I mean, Sarah Angel is still probably just a solid B, right? You're still happy to first pick it, still putting in your decks. But it's not the like bomb that perhaps it was in the 90s.
Yes, it is not like you don't slam it and win.
Yeah,
but it's gonna be good. So I just give it a solid B.
Yeah.
I could see it being like a B plus, but it's gonna depend. It's probably just a B though.
Yeah.
Oh god, this next card is so good. Swords to Plowshares. If you don't know this card,
they could just print this at Can they just print this at rare?
Yeah, I mean, as we've mentioned, this is the kind of removal that's just insane. It's why we gave the 4 and a white sorcery speed exile target creature a D, because the removal that you can get access to in this set is very very good. Swords to Plowshares. This card is probably the only removal spell that I think it's just an A, maybe an A-. It's just an A.
You're taking it, you're playing it in any deck, you're like taking it and then grabbing Evolving Wild so you can splash it. Like it's just going you're opening it, you're putting it in your deck, you're not gonna get past this, and when you do, your opponents are making mistakes.
Yep. Card is great.
Topin Freeblade, the rarity shift is real. 1 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier with vigilance and renown 1. So again, when it deals damage to a player, if it isn't renowned, it gets a counter, and then it becomes renowned. So
Card is dumb.
people who played Origins will remember this as the sort of scourge of that format. It was at common and really tough to deal with this on the play on turn 2 because then you are facing down a 3/3 vigilance for the rest of the game for 2 mana. Card's great. Probably less good at uncommon. Right?
I mean,
one of the things that was so good about this card was being able to like reliably have it on turn 2.
Sure, but in a master set, you have good enough 2-drops that you can still have those. Sure, I mean the card is still great. Like having your 2-drop being a card that they really want to block on turn 5 still.
Yes.
I mean I think this card is better than Seeker of the Way.
Really?
To be honest, Seeker of the Way is so if you connect with this card, it's just it can completely take away the game, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, sure, Seeker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, lifelink is big, but there's something to be said for a card that really takes almost no work to work.
And I also like Freeblade gets the augmentation permanently, whereas Seeker of the Way it's only temporarily.
Yep, and vigilance. Like I have this card at a I would be happy to first pick this card still.
For sure.
And
I still think I think I'm just on B-. Like I'm gonna give it the same grade as Seeker, or I guess we have Seeker a B.
Yeah, we gave. Yeah.
Well, then I guess I gotta give Topin Freeblade a B.
I'm not saying it's a B+. It's definitely not something that I'm slamming in this set, but it's just a B.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we have Wing Shards. This is I've never played with or against this card. I'd be interested to see how this plays out. This is 1 white for an instant. Target player sacrifices an attacking creature, and it has Storm. So if you've ever played with Storm before, it gets copied for each spell that was played before it in this turn. So let's say your opponent plays a creature on their turn pre-combat or a spell pre-combat, and then you get to cast Wing Shards, and you get to do it twice.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no Storm, this card's not very good, right?
If you're not getting to do it twice.
Yeah, I mean, it could be good against some decks. So one thing that's going to augment how good this card is how many, if there are a lot of haste creatures, which I don't think there are that many, right? Because if they play a haste creature, then any time that your opponent casts a spell before you cast this card, it's very, very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And are attacking with 2 creatures.
So the last time we saw this sort of affect the sacrifice and attacking or blocking creature was the white one from Origins, I think.
Yes,
and that card was something. Okay. And that card was okay, but was pretty easy to play around. And this feels like a similar thing.
Yes,
people are gonna know it exists. At least early in the format, you're gonna get an edge by playing around it when your opponent passes with 1 white available.
Yep.
I think it's pretty easy to be all right, well, now the thing that you always have to keep in mind is that you can play this at end of combat. So if your opponent's trying to play around it by chumping in with their small creature, you can block the small creature and then go to damage and then make them sacrifice the attacking creature at end of combat. Yep. So just keep that in mind.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not crazy about these effects, but I'll probably play them in a white deck. It's probably a C.
Yeah. I think it could be a C-.
Yeah. It could also be great.
It could also be a C+. It
could also be a C+, yeah.
So I think C for now is fine.
Great. All right, let's moving and grooving on to the rares here.
All right, this is where we get some funky cards.
Some funky cards, yeah. Well, there's also a lot of life gain stuff here. All right, so Auriok Champions is weird. White for a 1/1 human cleric. That's protection from black and red. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may gain 1 life. So
if you play against a black-red deck, it's pretty great.
So certainly against a black or a red deck, pretty good. And if you're in a life gain deck, I think it will be good as well.
Fine. Yeah.
But probably not something you need to
highly
prioritize. It's probably a D+.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
Austere Command, which is a very, very good Magic card. 4 white, and you get to choose, for a sorcery, you get to choose 2 of the following. Destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. So it can always just be Wrath of God for 4 white, which is not particularly great.
Right.
But being able to augment what gets destroyed, so some of your creatures get to live. And if you're destroying artifacts your opponents control or enchantments your opponents control, I mean, it can get pretty out of hand. Giving the amount of flexibility that it does is definitely worth the mana boost for most Wrath of God effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this card is probably what in Masters sets, in most sets it would just be an A.
I think it's a little too expensive
It's
to be
probably
an A.
too expensive to be an A
Yeah.
here. I think I'd give it an A minus, maybe B plus. It's going to depend on artifacts and enchantments. There are a lot of mana rocks to be able to play this early or blow up your opponent's mana rocks. Maybe. I think I would start it between probably around a B plus, maybe an A minus.
I think I gotta knock it down to B plus just because I'm just trying to remember Hour of Revelation as I was all these rats are great, and this was I realized this is more flexible. You can make this a bit more one-sided potentially, but I still think 6 mana is a lot for this kind of effect.
Yeah, I mean at the same time, right? It's sort of it's kind of like Dusk to Dawn, where you get to choose which way would be better.
Yeah.
Which does have a lot of value. I mean, if you think about it more as a Plague Wind and less as a Wrath, I mean, obviously it's insane. So, which is why I think I have it at A minus.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, it's a great card. I'd be happy to first pick it.
Yeah. Here's a fantastic card coming up: a Mirai Angel, 2 white for a 3/3 angel with flying, and as landfall. Whenever a land comes into play under your control, you get a 1/1 white bird token with flying.
Yep.
This card is great, just period. But then, taking into account that there is Evolving Wilds at common and all of the bounce lands at uncommon, you get some really fun shenanigans to do with this deck. I think or with this card rather, that I think sort of bumps it up even higher than it normally is. But this is just a fantastic card, I think. I would give this an A minus.
Yeah, I think I would also give it exactly an A minus.
Yeah.
All right, so next we have Path of Bravery, which is an enchantment for 2 and a white. As long as your life total is greater than or equal to your starting life total, which would be 20 here, it is a glorious anthem.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever one or more creatures you control attacks, you gain life equal to the number of attacking creatures. Okay, so let's forget about the first part for a second. The card, a 3 mana enchantment that says when you attack, you gain life equal to the number of attacking creatures is not great. Glorious Anthem on a card that makes you want to attack is great.
Mm-hmm. It's really tough because it's really good if you're in a racing situation. If you're an aggressive white deck, I think this card is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, is it better than just an aggressive 3-drop, though?
Almost certainly not.
Right? Which is where, if you're in the life gain deck, right, you're expecting to have more than 20 life a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And this should help, which helps you just always be smashing and keeping your life total high.
Yeah.
The nice thing about gaining life before damage here is that you could attack at 18 with 3 creatures, and then they all get the boost.
Yeah.
So I think this card is fine. I'm not going to take it highly, though.
It's also, just, to steal LR's quadrant theory, it's miserable when you're behind.
It's
card
so bad.
Is stone 0 impact if you're behind.
Yep, it's probably insane in a board stall, though, because you just have 8 creatures to attack with.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. If you're ahead, you'd probably rather just have a 3 mana aggro creature.
I think I would just, most of the time. Unless I'm ahead with, 20 life.
The other problem is, we're not, white is where we would expect, we'll look as we go into other colors, but white is where you would expect to see token making at common or uncommon, and we didn't really see it.
But there's not. Yeah.
So this card gets a lot worse when it's just if there was Lingering Souls floating around, I'd be like, all right, we can do it, but it's not really getting there. I think this is probably a D, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's problem. In some decks, it's going to be better than that, but I would not. I'm not going to take it highly, which means I'm probably not going to see it because it's a rare and people will take it.
Right. Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Resto Angel. People are certainly going to know this card. 3 and a white for a 3/4 angel with flash flying. When it comes into play, you can exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So, of note, the most important thing I want to talk about is that Kiki Jiki is in the format.
Oh God!
At rare.
Yeah,
and this is the only way to go infinite.
Is there no Deceiver?
I believe there's no Deceiver.
Okay.
I don't think. We'll do a quick check here. But I don't believe Deceiver is in this format. Unless they made it rare. Yeah. No Deceiver. So
Okay.
So that's just throwing that out there. Kiki's in the format, but there's no way. Kiki's a mythic and Resto's a rare. So you don't really have a lot of chances to do that.
Oh,
Otherwise, this card is really, really good. It has so much flexibility. Even just end of turn, even if your opponent doesn't attack and you have no other creatures. 4-mana 3/4 flyer is above rate for a card. And if you get to like get any sort of 2-for-1, like surprise block a creature and kill it, or blink a creature that's getting targeted with removal or getting blown out by a combat trick, like rebuying it out of the battlefield effect, the card is really, really strong.
Yeah, I'm giving it an A.
Yeah, it's just an A. All right, what's next?
All right, so now we have Sarah's Ascendant, which is an interesting 1-drop. It's a white mana for a 1/1 lifelink, but if you have 30 or more life, it becomes a 6/6 flying lifelink. All right. If you have 30 or more life, you're probably winning.
Yeah, you're winning because you have a 6/6 flyer in play.
Well, sure. I mean, this card is fine. 1 mana, 1/1 lifelink is not great, but in an aggressive deck where you need 1-drops, you probably play it. I don't know if there are. Wait, actually, of note, there are a good number of equipment, right? Isn't there like an axe or something at common?
Yeah, there's Darksteel axe at common. That's true.
So, and that helps you get up there. I don't really know how to evaluate this card without seeing how often decks that aren't the dedicated life gain deck end up being able to gain life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably a D+ though.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I
think again, it's a card that you could, if you're in the life gain deck and you open or get past it, it's cute, but it's probably not even that good in the life gain deck. There's probably just better things to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because again, when you're at 30 or more life, you should be winning the game. I mean, sure, you're not always, but
how did you get to 30 life if you're not stable or winning, right?
Yeah.
So I think what would you say, D+?
Yeah, I gave it D+ as well.
All right, last we have Yosei the Morningstar. This is pretty sweet new art. 4 white for a 5/5 legendary creature, dragon spirit with flying. When it dies, target player skips his or her next untap step, and you tap up to 5 target permanents that player controls.
Yeah.
Card's very strong. Really
Card's
miserable
great
to play against. Because even when you kill it, you're like time walking yourself.
Yep.
Probably just an A minus maybe because it's cost 6.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking 6-drops in general. I mean, it depends. It's going to depend on how the removal in this format works, right? Because if you play this and I swords it, because it's not when it leaves the battlefield, right?
It's just die. It's a die trigger.
And we've already seen 2 exile-based removal. The card's very good, and I would be happy to first pick it. So I'd probably give it an A-, but 6 mana is 6 mana.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Are there any mythics? Oh yeah, there are. All right. Well, these are all bombs. Well, some
yeah.
of them. Archangel of Thune, for sure. This is going to be just like windmill
A+.
slam. Yeah, 3 white for a 3/4 angel with flying and lifelink whenever you gain life. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is so certainly it's just like good on its own, but definitely an incentive to try and lean and prioritize things that have life gain payoffs, because this is such a strong engine for that kind of deck. A+.
A+.
Great. What's next?
Avacyn Angel of Hope, which is 5 white, so 8 mana for an 8/8 flying lifelink indestructible, that makes all of your other permanents indestructible. I mean, so it has a very strong impact on the game, but it is 8 mana. Now, I think there are a variety of ways to ramp in this set. I think there are 5 or 6 uncommons that do it, and 3 or 4 commons. But 8 mana is still a lot. So, I mean, in a white deck, you could go just Thran Dynamo into Avacyn on 5, which is pretty good. But outside of that, I mean, 8 mana is so much mana. I think it's still great, but I don't know if it's going to depend on how fast things move, especially because white can be a more aggressively oriented color. And usually in limited, you don't hit your 8th land until turn 12.
Yeah, probably. Like, it's really unlikely to do it just on land drops.
Right? So I think that's more of like if you have Avacyn, you're going to need to do a little bit of work to play it. There's a huge difference between 8 and 7.
Yes.
And I even think Avacyn impacts the board less than the next card that we'll talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think Avacyn, I don't know what I want to give it. Like,
it's probably like a D.
Yeah, I mean, on the board it's an A.
But just getting it there, and then like when it gets there, is anything else just winning you the game also, you know?
Yeah, any other 8 mana card, but the thing is are there other 8 mana cards? Not really. So I think a D is not like I don't think giving this a grade makes much sense. That's in fair. General. Like it's more like a build around A, right? If you want to think about it, just 8 drops tend to be, right? You can't put it in any deck, but like I don't think I want to start a draft with like an 8 mana card that doesn't like if this like was an 8 mana card that like wrapped the board,
Yeah.
It would have more of an impact on the board. Like if you just play this and your opponent has a bunch of derpy dudes and you don't have that many creatures, they can still just kill you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I'd give it like probably like a build around, I don't know, A-.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Last we got Elishnorn Grand Cenobite, 5 white for a 4/7 vigilance. Praetor, other creatures you control get +2/+2. Creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. This card is an insane bomb.
Yeah, this card resolved is almost unbeatable.
Yeah,
like, it's so good.
Yeah,
this is an A maybe. Like the only reason it wouldn't be an A+ is 7 mana, but given the amount of mana rocks, you can just take them.
Yeah, I'm still going A+.
Yeah, I think A+ is fine. Yeah. And I mean, salty pretzels. I mean, if Avacyn's worth something, sure you can first pick it, but I don't think I'd be happy to first pick an Avacyn.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording here.